Hi guys, thanks for pressing play on another Relive the Music video with me. This one is all about the year 2007. So coming up a wee bit later on, I'll be talking about albums released by Linkin Park and Velvet Revolver, amongst others. And in the gigs section, I'll be talking about the Black Crusade tour, which featured Machine Head, Trivium, Arch Enemy, Dragon Force and Shadows Fall. I'll also be talking about other gigs I went to, such as Funeral for a Friend, W.A.S.P, Lost Prophets and the Foo Fighters, and some more. But to set the scene, firstly I'll take you back through some of the news events from 2007, some of the popular TV and movies, the top 3 singles in the UK, before we go on to the album releases, and then lastly the gigs. So my name is Ricky, and welcome to my channel, Relive the Music. Okay, I want to start by saying a big thank you to my returning viewers. So that'll be Ian C, Good Guy Chucky, Stephen Blake, Tony's Travels, City Build Minecraft and Glasgow Harley Rider. And also a special mention this week to Mark, who is known as at 1986 Slippy. So basically Mark stopped me outside the Steel Panther gig and says, "Oh, I recognise you, you're the guy from the channel, I like the Relive series that you do." So that was really nice, so I thought I'd give you a mention, and I've given you a wee AC/DC Funko Pop figure beside your name, seeing as your profile picture's got you with an AC/DC flag, so hopefully you enjoy that. Okay, so now to the news stories of 2007. So this was the year that Apple gave us the first ever iPhone. So this was the kind of first phone to ever sort of use the smart technology. So basically you didn't have any buttons in the phone, it was all just a touch screen. Okay, Google unveiled Street View, which is a feature you can use on Google Maps. So that's basically if you're looking at somewhere, there's like a wee figure that you can put into the map, and then it goes into 3D, so you can actually, view down streets or paths, and then you just go like that with your finger to go forwards or backwards. So really helpful if you're trying to find directions to somewhere. Okay, this was also the start of the global recession due to the subprime mortgage crisis. So basically what you had here was people in America who had really poor credit ratings. They couldn't get mortgages by like the top banks and lenders. So they were offered mortgages with really high interest rates, which they weren't able to pay back, and they therefore defaulted on them. Okay, this was also the year, sadly, when Madeleine McCann first went missing. So she was a 3-year-old British girl on holiday in Portugal with her parents Kate and Jerry McCann and her twin siblings. So the parents had left the kids in the apartment whilst they went for dinner with friends about 60 metres away. And when they returned back to check on the kids, they saw that Madeleine was missing, and she's still not been found to this day. So we don't know whether she's dead or if she's out there somewhere. Okay, and lastly, this was also the year that Britney Spears had a bit of a meltdown due to the fact she was going through a custody battle with her 2 kids, and she also lost her aunt to cancer. So she ended up going into a hair salon and asked to get her head shaved off, and they refused to do it, so she did it herself. And then she also later attacked a paparazzi car. Okay, in the TV world in 2007, this marked the last appearance of the programme Grandstand. So this was first broadcast in 1958, so it had nearly been going for 50 years, but due to the decline in popularity of it, it got axed. So this was a BBC programme which would basically show stuff about football and about rugby and various other sports. And I know it best for the theme tune which used to sing along to when it came on about midday, and it ended with dun 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 dun. This was also the year that Britain's Got Talent premiered on our TV screens. So this was a talent show hosted by none other than Ant and Dec. And basically you had contestants from, I think it was London, Birmingham, Manchester and Cardiff in the first showing. I don't think there was anyone from Glasgow until the later series. So basically these individuals would come on the show and they would like sing, or they would like juggle or do a magician's act, all these different things, and they would get voted through or voted off each week, and then it would go all the way down until there was a winner. So the judges on it were Simon Cowell, Piers Morgan and Amanda Holden, and we ended up, the first season was won by a guy, Paul Potts, who was an opera singer. Nick Ross presented his last ever episode of Crime Watch after nearly 23 years at the helm. So this was a popular TV programme that basically used actors to reenact crimes that had taken place in the UK. So the hope was that people watching would maybe recognise some of the, it had the face fits on it, and it maybe jogged the memories for people, and the hope would be that they'd phone into the local police station and try and lead to the arrest for these crimes. So I think this is where the rise of like criminal programmes started from, because people are just sort of fascinated in true crime documentaries. I know I do enjoy a good one. So he used to have a favourite phrase. He'd always say it at the end of the programme. It would be, "Don't have nightmares, do sleep well." Now I remember he didn't do this one week. He always used to say it, but one week he didn't say it. And then they came on in the next episode and he said that basically he had to put it back in because there was so many like old people and things that liked him saying that, just as a reassurance. So that's quite an amazing story. So he put it back in with the "Don't have nightmares, do sleep well." Okay, and lastly we also got the TV series Fonejacker. So this was after a successful pilot on Channel 4's The Comedy Lab the previous year. It had been sanctioned for a series. So this was basically a comedy 30-minute sketch show on crank calls. It was created by a British-Iranian actor stroke comedian called Kayvan Novak. So he would make these prank calls, and quite often it would be accompanied on screen with like a mouth going up and down, or like animated images. But sometimes you would actually see the real things, because he would be outside in a phone box, or he would be in a rickshaw out in the street looking in. So they had like the same sort of characters each week which would be on it, so you got to love some of them. Like there was Terry Tibbs, he was a Cockney car salesman trader, and he'd like phone up people and it'd be like, "Maserati 3200, talk to me."
Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
Maserati 3200, talk to me.
And you also had the likes of, it was like an Indian guy in a call centre, you know the ones. So like they phone up and try and sell you something, and it says, "I'm phoning to sell you a better service of providings. Tell me what your providings are and I'll give you a better service of providings." And the other one that'll do is Mr. Doveday. So basically this was as if you just pronounced like words as if they sound. So like DVD, so he's like Doveday. And they would phone up places and people would get wound up. So he'd be asking for a look at the tuve, which would be an LCD TV. And then there's another one where he's asking for a hoop. And they'd be like, "That a what?" "Like a hoop." Like an HP, as in an HP, a Hewlett Packard computer. And they'd be like, "Is it ready for the hood?" Is it ready for HD? "What about USB? Has it got USB? USB, how many USB?" Like, the guy would be like, "What are you talking about? There's USB. I don't know any USB. It's USB. Yeah, USB."
That's called USB.
USB.
No, USB.
USB.
No, it's not called USB. It's called USB.
USB.
No, it's called USB.
USB.
Funny, phoning up like the directory inquiries, asking for doves. The doves. It's like, "Can you spell it for me?" "Yes, it's DFS. Doves." It's like, it's not doves, it's just DFS. Yeah, doves. I could go on like that forever. I love it. So that's all the TV from 2007. Okay, so now to the best-selling movies of 2007. So coming in at third place was Spider-Man 3, which featured Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man again, as he faced off against a new Goblin, Venom and Sandman. And coming in, the second best-selling film of the year was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. So this was the fifth film featuring Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. And coming in at number one was Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. So this starred Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow in more swashbuckling adventures. I love saying that, swashbuckling. Okay, some notable mentions to other films. So this was the year that we got the first Transformers movie. So this starred Shia LaBeouf as the main character Sam, and it also had Megan Fox in it, who was pretty hot. So they basically had the Autobots, which were the good guys, and they were facing off against the Decepticons, which were the bad guys. Okay, and lastly, to mention I Am Legend, starring Will Smith. So I was actually out in New York in 2005 when they were filming this, and I remember the streets being shut off because we were in a movies tour at the time, and the bus was trying to go down it, and the policewoman outside was, "Move along, nothing to see here, you can't go down there, move along, move along." And the movies guy was basically telling us that Will Smith was shooting this film. It was going to be a vampire film out in a couple of years' time. So you could see that basically there was nobody in it, and they had all this like tumbleweed because it was meant to be obviously a sort of post-apocalyptic scene. So you had Will Smith that was basically immune to this virus. I think it was like a cure for cancer that had gone wrong, and the people had basically turned into like zombies type vampires. And Will Smith was trying to develop a cure for it. And it's a really good film, I think. In fact, I think there's a second one coming out maybe later on this year or next year. But I found out after I'd watched it in the cinema, there's actually an alternative ending, so I'll not spoil it in case you've not seen it. But the film's good. Okay, now to the top 3 selling songs in the UK in 2007. So coming in at number 3 was the artist Mika with the song Grace Kelly. And I didn't know it, but when I played it on Alexa, I recognised it. Coming in at number 2 was Rihanna featuring Jay-Z with the song Umbrella. Now it's raining more than ever, know that we'll still have each other. You can stand under my umbrella, Ella, Ella, under my umbrella. And the best-selling song in 2007 was Leona Lewis with Bleeding Love. And I don't know it, she's the X Factor winner, I think, from a few years ago. Okay, so now to the albums in 2007. So first up, Five Finger Death Punch with The Way of the Fist. So this had 10 songs on it, and my favourite tracks from it are White Knuckles and probably The Bleeding. I love just the way it's like a slow song, but then when it comes into the chorus, it starts screaming, it goes, "The lying, the bleeding, the screaming." And they actually re-released this a year later in 2008 with 3 bonus tracks on it, and it was an acoustic version of The Bleeding on it, and you also had Never Enough, which is a really good song, and I think the other one was Stranger Than Fiction. Okay, Avenged Sevenfold released their 4th album called Avenged Sevenfold. Like, I don't know why do bands do that? Like, fair enough, Black Stone Cherry did it the year previous with Black Stone Cherry. That was their first album, but like, it's your 4th album. Could they not think of an album title? I don't get it. It's weird. Anyway, this had 10 songs on it, lasting 54 minutes long. And the standout tracks for me on it were Afterlife and Critical Acclaim. Okay, Fall Out Boy released their 3rd studio album, which was called Infinity and High. This had 14 songs and lasted 48 minutes long, and it's quite a strange arrangement for this, I think. So basically, your lead singer, Patrick Stump, he wrote all the music parts for it, and the bassist, Pete Wentz, he wrote all the lyrics. I'd have thought that would have been the other way around, or you would collaborate on it. I think that's strange. But anyway, they experimented with different genres of music in this, so there was a wee bit of soul and R&B and even flamenco, and they used items such as violins, horns and pianos on it. So out of the songs, like two of my favourites from it are Thanks for the Memories and This Ain't a Scene, It's a Goddamn Arms Race. That's a really good sing-along one. This ain't a scene, it's a goddamn arms race. This ain't a scene, it's a goddamn arms race. Okay, Funeral for a Friend released their third album called Tales Don't Tell Themselves, and this had 10 songs on it lasting 41 minutes long. So this is actually a concept album. It's to do with like a fisherman's story. So he goes out to sea and there's a big storm approaching and he basically gets lost out in the waters and his other crew die, and he decides to build a raft to try and get back to his wife and kids. So I don't know, this marked a kind of change in direction for me for the band. Like, it'd gone away from the stuff that initially I liked, as in the casually depressed songs, so there wasn't so much screaming in it and fast songs. There were a lot of sort of slower ones in it. But if you had to pick a song from it, then, you know, the opener, Into Oblivion's probably the pick of the bunch. It was, I stare into oblivion. Okay, Good Charlotte released their fourth studio album called Good Morning Revival, which had 13 songs lasting 45 minutes long. And the favourites on that for me are The River, featuring them Shadows of Avenged Sevenfold, and also Keep Your Hands Off My Girl. And the record keeps playing the same old song. The hipster be mugging on me all night long. They say, ha, 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 ha. Keep your hands off my girl. Keep your hands off my girl. Okay, Machine Head gave us their sixth studio album called The Blackening. And there was only 8 tracks on it, but it lasted 61 minutes. So the opener and the last song were both over 10 minutes long. Okay, Welsh rockers Manic Street Preachers gave us their 8th studio album called Send Away the Tigers, which they actually took from the English comedian Tony Hancock, who used that to describe battling your inner demons when you're drunk. So there was 10 songs on it and it lasted 38 minutes long, and the favourites from this for me were Autumn Song and Your Love Alone Is Not Enough, Not Enough, Not Enough. Okay, so Velvet Revolver gave us their second and what would prove to be last album called Libertad or Libertad. This was the follow-up to Contraband. So obviously Velvet Revolver were the supergroup consisting of Dave Kushner and Scott Weiland, and obviously Slash, Duff McKagan and Matt Sorum, formerly of Guns N' Roses. So there was 13 songs in this and it lasted 52 minutes long. And I didn't enjoy this one as much as Contraband, but it's still a good album. It's got that kind of just typical rock and roll feel about it, and it is quite easy to listen to. I just don't think it has as much like oomph, and like different songs don't really stand out as much on it. So if you're picking songs from it for me, then you've got Let It Roll and The Last Fight, which is a kind of slower one, which is good. She Mine, and probably the standout is She Builds Quick Machines. And the last album I'll talk about from the year 2007 was by the band Linkin Park, and that was called Minutes to Midnight. So this was their third studio album, and it had 12 songs on it lasting 43 minutes. And this was a bit of a move, a bit of a change of direction from them, so they were trying to move away from the nu metal sound. And there's actually only 2 songs on it where Mike Shinoda raps, and those are Hands Held High and Bleed It Out. And there's a lot sort of more slower numbers on it, but the slower ones are pretty good, in particular the ones What I've Done, and probably the best one off the album in my opinion is Shadow of the Day. So that's actually about a doomsday scenario and about the clock ticking down on humanity. That aside, as I say, another good song off it for me was Bleed It Out, and I like the start of that. It's got clapping along, it goes, I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. I think that's really catchy. I remember downloading that on iTunes as it was at the time. So that completes all the albums from 2007 that stood out to me. If there was other ones that you remember, then let me know in the comments below. Okay guys, so if you're watching this, you probably go to a lot of concerts, in which case you might have these already, but if you don't, I would suggest getting yourself a set of earplugs like these ones. I've been using these for nearly 2 years now, and they definitely help when you go to smaller venues. So I do thank those of you who have purchased a set. Let me know in the comments how they're working out for you, because endorsements are always good. Okay, so now to the gigs of 2007. So first up was our old friends 36 Crazy Fists. So I don't really remember too much about this because it's difficult. I've seen them a few times around about this period. So I think this was still on the Snow-Capped Romance tour. Okay, next up was W.A.S.P at the Garage, and this was as part of their Dominator tour. So I'd seen them last year on their Dominator tour, so it was nearly the same set. They played 12 songs. They actually only played 2 songs off the Dominator album and concentrated on the older stuff, thankfully. So this was the likes of Inside the Electric Circus, On Your Knees, I Wanna Be Somebody, which was always good. We're singing that back to him. He was going, I wanna be somebody, and then he'd sing, be somebody too, and then I wanna be somebody soon. So that was good. And then obviously it finished on Glasgow, I'm blind in Texas. So yeah, always good, and Blackie had a good voice back then still. Okay, so next up was Trivium at the Carlin Academy in Glasgow. So this was as part of the Crusade tour. So they played 16 songs, they had 2 cover songs, and they played 7 off of Ascendancy and 7 off of the Crusade. So they opened up with Entrance of the Conflagration, and they did the likes of Drowned and Torn Asunder, like Lord to the Flies, and they did like 14 songs, and then they came off and they did Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation and Pull Harder on the Strings of Your Martyr. I wish they'd get easier songs to say. That's quite hard trying to say all that. So yeah, it was good to see them, and I do remember I actually bought a t-shirt outside the venue for a £5, which I loved. It just had the Crusade badge on it. Just remember, like £5. I think the guy wanted a tenner, and I says, I'll give you 5, and he gave me it for 5. He's like, don't tell anyone. Okay, next up was Welsh band Lost Prophets at the SCCC. And if you're new to my channel or not watched my videos before, then I do talk about this, because as much as he went on to become a wrong one, I'm doing this as if I'm reliving this at the time. So I was big into Lost Prophets, and this was probably the 6th or 7th time that I'd seen them. So they played 17 songs. They had 8 from the most recent album, Liberation Transmission, 6 off of Start Something, and 2 off of The Fake Sound of Progress, which was The Fake Sound of Progress, and actually closed on Shinobi versus Dragon Ninja. So it was a real good night in terms of like singing along to a lot of the songs. I think they had Rooftops and Town Called Hypocrisy, and then it went into Last Train Home. So it was like a real good few songs in a row where the audience were singing along and enjoying it. And yeah, it was a good gig. It was maybe the best that I'd seen Lost Prophets. As I said previously, this was kind of probably about their peak time. Okay, next up was the Wild Hearts, and that was at the Cat House. So yeah, a small venue for them. So they did 13 songs, and they opened up with Vanilla Radio and actually closed on I Wanna Go Where the People Go. So quite a lot of the other shows they'd opened with I Wanna Go Where the People Go, so that was a bit different. So they had songs from about 5 different albums. You had My Baby Is a Headfuck in there, and TV Tan, and Caffeine Bomb. And yeah, it's always good to see Ginger and the guys. Bit disappointed it was only 13 songs though. Next up was Welsh post-hardcore band, love saying that, Funeral for a Friend. at the Carlin Academy. So this was obviously supporting the tour from the Tales Don't Tell Themselves album. So it was 16 songs, and they had 6 from that album and 6 from ours, and the rest were from Casually Depressed. So I think it was only 4 from that, which was disappointing because that's my favourite album, but obviously they've got to play the new tracks. So they actually opened up with Into Oblivion, which is a strange one to open with because it's quiet, but I suppose, I don't know, get out of the way or get the crowd into it, one of the two. And they finished with Escape Artists Never Die, and they had the likes of Juno in there. I was a bit disappointed that they didn't have Red Is the New Black. That's one of my favourite tracks. Okay, next up was Machine Head at the Carlin Academy. So this was as part of their Blackening tour. So they did 11 songs, and they had 4 from the Blackening album. The standout tracks for me though were the ones that weren't from that album. So you had the likes of Old and The Blood, The Sweat, The Tears. Although I'm sure like live they sing The Blood, The Sweat, The Beers. I'm sure, maybe I'm making that up. You also had Imperium on it. And then they did like a wee medley which they'd done before when I'd saw them. So they did like Territory by Sepultura, and I think maybe Slave New World, and like a Metallica cover in Iron Maiden and stuff. So yeah, it was good to see them. Okay, a few doublers in this year. So next up was W.A.S.P for the second time this year at the Garage. So this was as part of the 15th year anniversary of the Crimson Idol. So they actually played the full album and from start to finish, and then they went off for a break and they came on and they did 5 more songs. So you had I Wanna Be Somebody, Wild Child, and I think they finished in Blind in Texas. Okay, next up was the Foo Fighters, and this was at the SECC, and it cost 30 quid. I remember thinking at the time, that's a lot of money. So this was the second time for me seeing them, having originally seen them at one of the gig in the Greens. And they played 21 songs. So it was kind of split. I remember there was a big stage coming out from that. I was with a couple of folk from work. I remember thinking, oh, we're quite far away. And then after about 9 songs, they transformed and they went into like an acoustic set, and they ended up, they were right up at like where we were standing. So all the people near the front, they were miles away, and then we were like right next to it when they did the acoustic bit. And then they went back for like the last 4 or 5 songs on it. So you had all the kind of hits, if you want to call it, in there. You know, you had the Pretender and Everlong, and they finished with Best of You on it. They also did All My Life. So yeah, it was a good night, and it was a lot better than when I saw them the first time, and it was either, I think it was 2003. Just there was a wee bit more into them, and they're a wee bit more famous at this point. Okay, next up was an event called the Black Crusade, and this took place at the SECC. So it was £25, and there was actually 5 bands on it. So I'm not entirely sure if they're running order. I think first on were Shadows Fall, and then Arch Enemy, and I'm not really kind of into either of them. Arch Enemy's the one with, I think, with the female singer in it, and the really kind of growly voice. But I think third on was Dragon Force, and I just remember, I remember the guitar on this because I think it was in one of the Guitar Heroes. They had one of the songs on it, and I remember thinking, God, that's playing like really fast on it. It was like so difficult to try and follow. And then I remember when they finished their set, they actually came out and they sat in the SECC down with like a whole bunch of people. So people were sitting down in between each band, because I think the show was like about a 6 p.m. doors because there was 5 bands. So obviously everybody was getting kind of like just a small amount of time to perform. So I think it was Trivium that were second last on. I think Machine Head were topping the bill. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, as I say, because it is a bit hazy. So obviously I'd seen Trivium earlier on in the year, so this was just a kind of shorter set than that. But it was good to see them on this night. And then we had Machine Head, pretty sure it was Machine Head, closing it out. So obviously I had seen them just not long beforehand, and I'd seen Trivium earlier in the year. That's what I'm saying. This year had quite a few bands on it that I saw a couple of times. It's weird like that, you know. You can go a while without seeing a band, and then you're seeing them twice in a year. Okay, next up for me was another doubler, Funeral for a Friend, but this time it was at the Barrowlands, so always good to get a gig there. So still on the Tales Don't Tell Themselves tour, they did 17 songs, but this time round I think the set list was stronger. It was different to earlier on in the year. So we had Red Is the New Black back in this time. They must have heard me from the previous one, and the likes of 10.45, Amsterdam Conversations, and you know. We also had Seven Nation Army cover of the White Stripes, which was good. Down, 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 down. So yeah, this was a much better offering in my opinion, and more enjoyable than the first time I saw them in the year. Okay, so next up was the Wild Hearts, and it says here Cullen Academy, right? This was in their Christmas tour, but let me know if you were at this, because I was convinced this was at the Garage, and I'll tell you why in a wee minute. But anyway, so they played 19 songs on this Christmas tour, they were calling it, and they finished with I Wanna Go Where the People Go. So we did about 13 songs, and then I remember them going off and we were doing the Don't Worry About Me, I'll Be Alright, so don't worry about me. And then they came back out, they did like 5 or 6 songs. So this was a good set list. You had like Nita Nitro in there, Sick of Drugs, and 29 Times the Pain. But this is why I think this was at the Garage. I don't know why that ticket's wrong, but I remember they did this wee thing, as I say, it was the Christmas tour, and Ginger was going on and saying fuck Christmas, like playing out a wee guitar riff and getting everybody to say fuck Christmas. And they did this about 5 times after, like, in between songs. It became quite annoying actually to me. But I was pretty sure I remembered that him saying that at the Garage and not the Cullen Academy. Like, I don't really remember seeing the Wild Hearts ever playing the Cullen Academy. It was always like the Garage or the Barrowlands. So if you were there, let me know, because I've seen them that many times. It's kind of hard. The memories all merge into one another. Okay, we're nearly there. Second last one, 4 days before Christmas, seen Made in Scotland. Now it says at Barfly, right? I don't know, I don't remember that. So in the 2005 video I said that when I first saw Bullet, that was the one and only time I've been to Barfly. So I must have been lying, but I don't remember this. I don't remember going back there unless this was a change of venue. So I'm sure it was probably a good night. Although Stephen Blake tell me they probably didn't have puppets back then, did they? They didn't have Eddie costumes. There's certainly no cyborgs coming out on stage. So yeah, it would have been good seeing Made in Scotland, but I'm not going to lie here and say, well, yeah, it was a great night, because I can't really remember it. As I say, I don't remember being at the Barfly. Okay, and rounding off the gigs for 2007, the very last one I went to, 3 days after Christmas, another tribute, ABCD, which was of course AC/DC. So that's all the gigs for 2007. Okay, so just looking ahead to the next Relive the Music video, that will obviously be on 2008. So in that, I'll be talking about albums by bands Bullet for My Valentine and also Guns N' Roses. So let me know in the comments what you think those albums are. And on the gig front, I'll be talking about a triple header, which was Def Leppard, Whitesnake and Blackstone Cherry, and also the first time I went to see the band Extreme. Okay, so if you've watched my video all the way through to the very end, then well done you. No, thanks very much. It does mean a lot to me, and if you enjoyed the content, then if you can give it a wee like and maybe subscribe to the channel if you don't already do so, it would mean a lot to me, because I'm trying to get towards 2000 as the next mark. And if you were at any of these gigs, or you saw any of these bands on these particular tours, again, let me know in the comments. You might be able to clarify some things that I can't quite remember. So always remember, it's never goodbye, it's just until next time.
Don't have nightmares. Do sleep well.